Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. Guys, you're in for a real treat. The timeline between me learning about you, John, and getting you on the show is probably the smallest in the history of this show. For people who don't know, my guest today is John Bryan Esq. His YouTube channel is at The Civil Rights Lawyer. You've got over 1 million subs. Your videos do huge numbers. And let me explain to you how you came across my desk. I, like so many other people with too much spare time in their hands, spend a lot of time watching police body cam videos on YouTube. And as someone who's been extraordinarily critical of the police for his entire career, the prevalence of body cams have changed my opinion of police in two separate ways. First, it's given me a lot more sympathy for them because you don't call the cops when things are nice, right? And a lot of times they're there trying to act professional while someone is yelling epithets or even racist epithets at them. They have to say, sir, man, keep their cool when someone is just really completely out of control. And then, there's this kind of have to maintain some measure of decorum. So that's one side of it. But the other side of the videos that I've seen highlighted in your show, and as much as I'm skeptical about the future AI, these algorithms really are gotten really good at delivering content that you want. Let me tell you the exact video of yours I saw that made me, and we'll play a little clip of it here, that really made me enraged to the maximum threshold. There was a warrant for a man who was accused of kicking down a door and I believe assaulting a woman. He's in a wheelchair. He's been in a wheelchair for 15 years. He's clearly not kicking down any doors. The cops see him. He's like in his 50s, by the way. He's not some kid. And they're like, how long you been in a wheelchair? He's like, 15, 20 years.
How long have you been in your wheelchair?
Since I was 18.
Since you were 18?
5 years.
So the cop at the least has the sense to be like, something's not adding up. We have the wrong guy.
If you're paralyzed, somebody must have made a mistake. Because if the door was kicked in, he didn't kick it in.
They go upstairs, talk to their supervising officer, sergeant. I remember the guy's title. This fat pig, I would say, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, ironically, can't even bother to get up. He says no, without any assessment, he goes, no, he's lying. He's faking it.
Don't mean to interrupt your lunch. I'm stepping in, helping out a little bit. They got a quadriplegic guy up there.
I just told him about it.
Oh, he already got the rundown?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's phony wash.
Yeah, but how could he?
And I just want to put it out there. He flopped out the wheelchair. I was like, can you raise your hands? Because I'm trying to, pat him down, make sure he doesn't have anything. I don't know if the camera's going to catch it, but I got him by the tip of my fingers. And he just...
It's a ruse, man.
So...
it's an obvious attempt to not to go to jail, so...
Yeah. But he is fucked up from the waist below.
They go down, drag him out of the wheelchair in public view. This isn't in his home. This is in a lobby. He's no flight risk. And they put him in cuffs and arrest him.
Unfortunately, it is. I can't... Is this a joke? Do me a favor, lift your hands up above your head, please.
I don't have muscle control.
Okay, that's fine.
It's not like
Put it on the other side.
I
on the
literally
other side.
can't. I don't have muscle control. I'm not.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
And the thing that really enraged me about this is, let's suppose I saw a video of this person. Let's steel man this as much as possible. I saw a video of someone kicking down a door and assaulting a woman. I know the guy's a bad guy. I see him in a wheelchair. I see the video. I think he's faking it. I do this, and it turns out it was the guy's twin, right? And the guy arrested in the wheelchair was actually in a wheelchair. The amount of guilt I would feel and be like, what have I gotten to that this is my job, that I'm pulling people out of wheelchairs? And by the way, this is the only video like that. But there's none of that. There's this like, oh, well, what are you going to do? Got to pay the rent. So that's a big intro, but I'm really curious as to your background and why this is a topic that is so cogent to you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that was a good one in a bad way.
Yeah.
And some of these things, I spend probably the most amount of time just selecting what I want to cover, what I want to do the video on, because number one, that's obviously important, but number two, there's so much out there to select from. I mean, I could do 10 times the number of videos. I mean, if I could clone myself, I could put out multiple per day. I mean, there's just so much out there, but I like, as any trial lawyer really is. I mean, we're storytellers. We like good stories. The public likes good stories. And some stories are better than others. And it's just crazy how some of these real life stories, as just told through these body cams, are just insane. I mean, you could write it out as fiction and it just wouldn't be believable.
Right.
But there it is, it's real. And that's a good one in a bad way, but there are many others. Like, I encounter them every day, working on one now.
What kind of attracted you to this sort of content?
Well, it all was really by accident. I mean, this this was my career, and I mean, that's what I like to do, was litigate civil rights cases as a plaintiff. So suing the government every time. And that was just sort of my passion. And ironically, it was always like an unpopular thing. You know, if I was, not that I go to cocktail parties, but if I were at a cocktail party with like judges and lawyers, I would be, the black sheep there,
Mhm.
because at one time it was very unpopular to do what I did. And then at some point all that changed, and next thing you know, that people would say, thank you for your service, type of thing. And it started to be, a good thing. But to me, it was always just the individual case. It's never like I was on, some mission to be on one side or the other. If I had a client that had something bad happen to them, they wanted to file a lawsuit, then I would just evaluate the individual case and file a lawsuit or not file a lawsuit. But in a career of doing that, I had all sorts of crazy fact patterns, crazy cases that was like part of how I was getting paid. So the smarter lawyers are all literally chasing ambulances or working for corporations. They're making more money. I was choosing to do something that I thought was interesting, that I was passionate about, but because of the way it operates, I may not make any money at all. I may lose money. And if I do make money, it's going to be less than if it was just your regular boring car wreck case. So it was just choosing that career path that gave me the experience of having these cases. And as time went on and body cams became more prevalent, then video footage became a thing, because it wasn't really that much of a thing for a lot of my career, and which also included criminal defense.
Mhm.
And then the whole YouTube thing was a complete accident. My very first video, if you find it, I mean, it's terrible, like production quality wise. I didn't even have a microphone. I didn't own one. So I just communicated what needed to be communicated, like Star Wars style, with, I think, like white letters going across the screen or something. Like, I had typed out what needed to be said because I didn't have a microphone. But that was my
Boomer
first video.
alert. Boomer alert.
Yeah, that was my first video, because I wasn't it wasn't the only intention was for the public to see it.
Yeah.
Like, I had this crazy video of this group of cops, like, breaking into my client's house in rural West Virginia. They have no uniforms on. They they have pistols, like, stuck in their pants. They look like criminals, literally crawling in the window, unlocking the door, letting the other criminals in, and they go inside this guy's house. They don't know that there's cameras inside, and they search his house. You can see them. He's got cameras in every room, because he thought somebody might steal his Arrowhead collection, so he had cameras set up. I mean, it was pretty innocent. They didn't know. And I have this footage of these cops searching through this guy's house. I mean, they're going in his underwear drawer. They pull his guns out of his closet. They take pictures of his guns, and they just leave them sitting out, like, on the stove. They ransacked this guy's house searching. They thought they might find drugs in there or whatever. They find nothing. Actually, they find his dead friend's ashes. His dead friend's ashes, like, I guess some people do that where they have somebody cremated and then they'll divvy up the ashes and give it to
Yeah,
like good friends and family. I didn't
yeah,
know that, but
that's common.
apparently these cops didn't know that either, because they find this little container of ashes and these idiots are like, aha, they have found the drugs they're looking for. And they have these field test kits. And so they run this dead person's ashes through several field drug test kits. It's like they can't figure out why it's not working. And then they just throw it on the floor. And so this guy comes home and he finds his house ransacked. He finds bits of these ashes and drug test kits on the floor with like little pieces of his friend's bones. And so I have this video, and the first thing I want to do is find out, well, is there a justifiable explanation for this? Did they have a search warrant to come in this kid's home? So I send out FOIA requests to that particular county. I investigate that on my own, and I determined that there was no record of this happening, basically.
Oh, wow.
No official reason for them to be there. So what I had done the right thing. This is pre-YouTube. I had done the right thing, and I gave the feds that video. And I gave them the opportunity to do something about it. I said, I think these are bad cops. You have the FBI. All you have to do is send an FBI agent to talk to them and be like, "Hey, were you in this house?" And they didn't do anything. And it's like I had like this feeling like just kind of your skin crawling, like something is wrong and I needed to do something as soon as possible. So I said, I need to get this video footage out there. Like I feel like I'm in danger. I want the public to see this as soon as possible. So do I give it to the news media? No, I mean, I'm like, I'm going to create a YouTube account and I'm just going to put it on YouTube. So that's what I did. And that was my first video. And it went, fairly viral for a first video. It was like 50,000 views or something overnight, mostly in West Virginia where this happened. And then it just kind of went from there. After the first one, I realized that there was like an appetite for this. Like people
Yeah.
were interested in this, just like I was interested in this. So then I would post some more videos. Like, yeah, I also had this other crazy case where
Wait,
cops.
hold on. I wanna hear what happened with this one. What
Oh,
what was the conclusion? Don't cliffhanger us.
well, the conclusion is what ended up happening. Why the feds didn't do anything with it. Behind the scenes, I found this out later after we filed a lawsuit and discovery came out, and I got all these communications from law enforcement. Unbeknownst to me at the time, the federal prosecutors had given the FBI this video. And so instead of this FBI agent, instead of actually going and investigating it like he was supposed to do, instead was friends, I guess, or colleagues with some of the cops who were involved, because this was a task force of drug cops. Like, and they thought that they were like in some movie, right? So and they're working in part, like some of them as and this is something you can go into the weeds in, because a big problem in this country, actually, which you're seeing, are these federalized task force of local cops. And I don't want to get too far off in the weeds, but the reason it's a problem, in my opinion, is because there's zero accountability. There's very little accountability with state and local police officers anyways. But you put a federal deputized badge on them, they are untouchable. You cannot sue them. All you can do is hope that a prosecutor would prosecute them, or maybe the federal government itself disciplines them in some way. But as a citizen or anyone else, there's nothing that we can do about it. They are completely untouchable. So these guys, some of them were federally deputized at other times, not on this incident, not with this incident, but they had this relationship. So instead of actually investigating them or prosecuting them, because there was no lawful reason for them to be in this kid's house. Like, it was an illegal entry, it was a legal search. So instead of what happens, they don't know they're on this video. You know, until I put it out there, they didn't know. Well, they should not have known that the video existed. I did the right thing, let the federal government, you know, police them, do their job. Instead, they went and leaked the existence of the video. And the specific words were, this jack-legged lawyer has a video of you guys in this house, FYI.
What's jack-legged mean? I'm sorry, I'm from
I had
Brooklyn.
never heard the term
Oh, okay.
jack-legged before. Apparently, it's an insult. I can't recall exactly what the insult is, but it was it was I guess saying that I'm not just a lawyer, but I am that type of lawyer that will sue
Oh,
cops.
it means you are unskilled, incompetent, or dishonest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So you're a shyster, he's saying, somehow. I love the
Right.
idea that an objective hidden camera is somehow evidence of your incompetence. An objective record of people, you're not there, your client's not there, but somehow you're the blame that this video exists. It's amazing, the logic.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it was a good lesson to learn. So I correctly had this gut feeling that something was wrong. So I decided to upload that to YouTube. And again, that was my very first video, and it worked. And that's been the theme of this whole thing, is that I've gone really from litigating civil rights cases to making YouTube videos of civil rights cases. And it's been way more effective. I mean, the whole problem with policing in this country, if we had to dial it down to one problem, is a lack of accountability.
Right, because
Because even lawyers like me, we can file civil lawsuits, but there's qualified immunity. There's absolute immunity. There are, you know, other things that stand in the way of being able to be successful with these lawsuits. So unlike the medical world or the trucking world or anything else where things sort of sort themselves out because doctors and trucking companies or whomever don't want to get sued. So they keep that in mind when they make decisions, hiring decisions or policy decisions. That does not exist in government for the most part. The only real means of accountability is through public outrage.
yeah.
You know, which is a fickle thing and is not ideal at all, but it's the only thing that works. And I learned that with that very first video, and there were more. You know, I later on had, it's like I had this case where my client was shot through the front door of his home several times. You know, just a wild fact pattern. And so I put that on there. There were others. I had this guy not walk in, he was sent to me, who says, I had a family court judge search my house. And I'm like, what? And so I looked at the video. He had some video. And I was like, this is crazy. What should we do? Let's put it on YouTube. So I put that on YouTube, and damn if it didn't work. It's like it went viral like the next day. The judicial disciplinary prosecutors see it, and they drive down to where this judge is, and they question her under oath. And that began a long process that ultimately took down that judge who had been doing this to people for 20 years.
Oh my God.
And just like the other case, I also filed a civil rights lawsuit, and that was litigated over the course of a number of years. But just like both of those cases, the government didn't care so much about that lawsuit. They ultimately ended up paying money in both of those cases, but the government does not care about that.
Right.
All they care about is whether or not there's any sort of public outrage.
Right.
So that judge one ended up becoming published Fourth Circuit case law, which was very little of it on when you can sue judges. But that was kind of the accidental beginning of my YouTube channel. Was completely not with that intention. But I discovered from the very beginning that that was getting more results than, just fighting in the trenches, this losing battle of trying to sue the government, when it allows you to sue it.
Yeah, we've investigated ourselves and found ourselves innocent of all wrongdoing is the thing. Guys, one of the reasons I moved to Austin from Brooklyn is so I could be safe in my home. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the guy who shot up that subway station, that was half a block from my house. There was police tape outside what had been my former door. New York's getting worse and worse, and many other places as well. Home safety is a major concern. So I want to talk to you about Simply Safe. Simply Safe is a home security system that is next level because they have AI-powered cameras that detect threats while they're still outside your home, and they alert real security agents. This is a game changer. The agents take action while the intruder is still outside. They confront the intruder. They let them know they're being watched on camera and that the police are on their way. They can even sound a loud siren and trigger a spotlight if needed. This is how you stop a crime before it starts. That's real security. Other systems have cameras that let you talk to intruders, but they require you to see the alert yourself. Simply Safe has monitoring agents to have your back and can talk to intruders even if you aren't there. So if you're going on a trip, you don't have to worry. Simply Safe has you covered. Here's the thing. There are no long-term contracts. There's no hidden fees. You can cancel anytime. It's been named the best home security system by U.S. News & World Report for 5 years in a row. 60-day money-back guarantee. You can try it and see the difference for yourself. You can trust Simply Safe to keep your home safe, either when you're there or when you're away. Right now, you save 50% off on a Simply Safe home security system. Just go to SimpliSafe, SimpliSafe.com/malice. That's SimpliSafe, SimpliSafe.com/malice, and get half off. Thank you, Simply Safe, for keeping us safe. Let's get back to the show. You still haven't told us how that first situation ended. Were the cops fired? Did your client get some compensation?
Were they fired? Nope.
Wow.
Their little task force was disbanded pretty much immediately. Maybe the
Okay.
day after the video went on YouTube, to my recollection. So it put a stop to it immediately, and they weren't doing it anymore, to my knowledge. But they ultimately, I don't recall the specifics, but some of them, like they stayed in law enforcement, did other things. Ultimately, they may have been disciplined, but I don't think anybody was fired or anything like that. Certainly, nobody was prosecuted.
Right.
They did get sued, and ultimately, I took their video depositions,
Oh, good.
and they begged a judge to seal them. So they were sealed. They're still sealed to this day. But it was basically them pleading the fifth like 500 times. I would ask them questions about that incident, and they wouldn't answer. They're pleading the fifth, and then they're going back to work and working as law enforcement officers with the authority given to them, the trust, the faith and trust placed in them by the public. Yet they just pled the fifth under oath like 10 minutes earlier. So yeah, that's sort of how this stuff works. Is only public outrage can get accountability that actually matters. And there was some public outrage, I guess, in that case, but it never rose to the level to
Yeah.
where any politician or bureaucrat felt it necessary to fire any of those guys.
I,
Other
I,
other cases, yes.
I just got to say, thank God your client wasn't home. Because if your client
Yeah.
had been home, someone would be in a body bag or more than one person. And the thing that I find fascinating about cases like this is, in my experience, which is far less than yours, there's never any sense of guilt or remorse. It wasn't like, oh crap, I broke into some innocent guy's house. I ran through his stuff, left it a mess. He's gonna come home. If I come home and there's a gun on my stove, that's a threat to me. That means someone wants me to know, hey, I've been in here and I have a gun. And not to mention the sacrilege of the friend's ashes. But I'm guessing when you were taking their depot, there was no sense of like, oh crap, like, or maybe I'm wrong. I would love to hear your perspective.
Well, those video depositions were sealed just because of my YouTube channel. So when
Okay.
I noticed them as video depositions, the other lawyers, wisely, I guess, if they're doing their
Sure.
job, they're protecting their clients. They went and ran and cried to the judge and said, "Well, he's just doing that. He's producing content for YouTube, and this is going to poison the jury pool and cause all sorts of harm." And so I fought it, and I said, "Well, the public has
Yes.
I don't know if I'm going to upload it to YouTube or not." But I mean, maybe I will, and they shouldn't be able to stop me. Ultimately, what happened was the judge sealed it under a protective order, but said basically my authority only extends to protecting the integrity of a potential jury trial. After that point, if you want to request it to be unsealed,
Ooh.
you can do that. I never have done that. I probably should do that,
Yes.
because what the public would see if they watched those videos was, them pleading the fifth, but also me making them do it. So, and it is a little bit in the weeds, but when somebody does something like that, when they plead the fifth and you end up at a jury trial, a lot of times you can get a instruction on the law to the jury that they're allowed to make an adverse inference about their refusal to answer. So if I ask them, um, you know, are you a dishonest person? And they plead the fifth, the jury would be told by the judge, ideally, that they are allowed to infer from that the answer was that yes,
Right.
I am a dishonest person, or it applies. So therefore, I would then ask all sorts of questions, which I
Yeah.
could get this adverse inference. And so I was doing that in those depositions, and they were getting so pissed. I mean, their lawyers, I guess, had told them, just plead the fifth to all these questions. But if they wanted to play that game, we were going to play that game. So I'm asking them pretty much everything. Like so and so sitting over there, like he's a bad cop, isn't he? He's a dirty cop. And so I'm trying to get them out of the character that they were in,
Yeah.
and also kind of achieve what I need to do for my client if we do go to jail, and not just let them disrupt those proceedings completely. But what happened was some of them handled it better than others. There were like 4 or 5 of them. Is one in particular, he's getting so mad. Oh, he's not used to being talked down to,
Right.
and that's part of why I love doing what I was doing, because it's like I love to I love to be the bully of bullies. It's like pick on somebody your own size. And so there I was picking on him, and he's not used to it. He's getting so angry. He's looking at me like, you know, what I would do to you if that camera wasn't there or if
Yeah.
these other lawyers weren't there. And he's turning red in his face,
And it's not an
and
empty threat.
I'm not afraid, and so I'm continuing, and he's just veins busting out of his face. I recall. I mean, the videos would be boring substance wise because it was just them pleading the fifth over and over. But things like that, like, yeah, that would be interesting for the public to see, because then that guy is like going off working some other
Yeah.
law enforcement job after he just refused to answer the question under oath whether or not he's a liar.
Well, 2 points. First of all, you can just make a montage of cops pleading the fifth compilation and just have a counter on the bottom of the screen and just ding every single time. And the other thing with that cop is if he couldn't take it out on you, he took it out on somebody else or his spouse. Because this is something else people. So we all grew up in this certain kind of culture, and you grew up with NYPD Blue and these movies and these cop shows. And if that's your only interaction with the police, you think, man, these people can't get any sleep until they solve this crime. And you can understand it maybe if there's like a serial killer and he's killed 7 people and he's about to kill number 8. And then when you actually look it up, you realize whenever they catch a serial killer, there's like 40 bodies that never even crossed the radar. So even that's not a thing. but it's not a thing that they are kind of, I can't wait to finish solving crime, especially because most cops aren't in that business, more of a detective thing. But the other point I want to make is if you interact with them in any context, and this is something you never see on TV or movies, you can criticize obviously writers and podcasters, college professors, reporters, politicians, most certainly, doctors in the medical establishment, every other industry or job. Lawyers certainly get dumped on all the time. Cops are the only one who would go straight from normal to threats of violence in seconds. You see it constantly, and there's never the sense of like if it wasn't for me, but I hope you get killed. It's just crazy how that happens, and then you see it in these videos, and people I think are very shocked because if you're a peaceful, law-abiding citizen, which most of us are, you're only going to see someone, cop in the corner or cop making arrest of a bad guy. You never have to see it. What happens if that you cross that cop and he's having a bad day, which is pretty much every day. So when you see these videos, I think why it's so popular for people, they've never been exposed to any data like this. And these are not outlier cases. Like you said, it's situation after situation. You're like, holy crap, this is what they're really like. And why wouldn't they? Because human beings, if they have power and no accountability, yeah, of course. And the argument is that there's only a few bad cops. Well, why aren't the good cops arresting them? Like in this situation, there's 5 of them. None of them were like, holy crap, what do we do? This is effed up. We got to take steps to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Well, there was, thinking back to that case, there was at least one, I think 2 detectives in that same police department. I think it was the sheriff's department who did step up. One of them, if I recall correctly, had written a letter to the elected sheriff objecting to the discipline that was recommended, which was as it was too minor. Recommended that guy needs to be fired and fired immediately if we're going to maintain the integrity of this police department. And so there was at least one police officer in that agency who put his name on the line to demand that the other one be fired. And I don't think he was. So, I mean, there are people who step up like that, but look at what you're up against. It's there's all sorts of politics involved in these things. I mean, sometimes they're quick to throw cops under the bus, completely. If there's a political advantage to doing so, they'll throw cops under the bus quickly. If there's a political advantage to not throwing anyone under the bus or there being no accountability at all, they'll do that. I mean, it's the government. And what I try to explain to people that never seems to get through is they're being gaslit in a certain sense. All this back the blue stuff, or all cops are bad. Any way you look at it, either side, they're missing the point. The point is that it's the government. Like
right.
it's not about individuals. It's
Mm-hmm.
the government. No one thinks like, all right, the IRS, like I trust the IRS because my uncle was an IRS agent. Like nobody thinks that. Nobody says that. Like, if you have to interact with the IRS, like you're interacting with the government, like they're looking to screw you in some way. That's a safe assumption. You're not going to just have a knee jerk trust for that IRS employee that is reaching out to you, because your Uncle Roy was always a police officer and you want to back the blue. It's no different logically when you're dealing with police encounters. I mean, it's a safe assumption that the government is going to protect itself and it's going to screw you any way that it's convenient to screw you, unless there's, some reason to help you, which there generally is not going to be. So to knee jerk just support the police and trust any individual who's out there is a pretty irrational thing to do. And so I think, and they know that, like if you look at the police, leadership or propaganda organizations, they're pushing the back the blue stuff, not because they necessarily want to help the individual officers, but because it's good for them. I mean, it gives them more power.
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. I mean, so it's difficult to explain that to people that, like, you are backing the government, because here's what it all comes down to. The lack of accountability helps the government. It does not help individual police officers. Qualified immunity is a very, very difficult topic to get into, but what it all boils down to is that its existence does not help individual police officers. It helps government
Mm-hmm.
entities. Because if we were going to do this the actual right way, it would be just like doctors or
Yep.
dentists or lawyers, or doctors, in particular, because an individual doctor does something wrong, they can get sued, they get their hospital sued, they end up on this national registry where they can't just go pop up at a hospital in another state. Everyone who needs to know about it it's going to be available, whatever findings of misconduct were there from their past.
Mm-hmm.
The fear of getting sued and the effectiveness of that process. I mean, it's not perfect, but it keeps people safer from bad doctors,
Right.
and that's just the way it's worked out, and it works out in every area of private industry. The one place that's so important that we don't have anything like that is in law enforcement. The way that it works is, if I'm going to sue on behalf of a police officer violating somebody's rights, under the law, I have to sue an individual. So in federal court, I have to sue Officer John Doe. I can't just sue like I would do if this was a medical malpractice case or a trucking accident.
Right.
I I'm suing the employer.
Yeah.
Under the law, they're responsible for whomever they turn out onto the roads that kill or maim somebody. It's their responsibility. They're supposed to have insurance. It's their job to make it right. They're supposed to be policing their own,
Mm-hmm.
making sure they have safe drivers on the road and safe policies and all that. But in the law enforcement context, I cannot sue the employer. There is no vicarious liability, respondeat superior, just like there is in the private industry, because the government has protected itself by saying, no, 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 you can't sue. You can't sue the employer. Why would we do that? The employer is not responsible. It was the individual.
Yeah.
You have to sue the individual officer. So, okay, we go through the fiction of suing Officer John Doe, who may or may not have any money at all to satisfy whatever damage he's caused, even if we were to win. And the reason is because the officer himself can assert qualified immunity.
Right.
Because originally the courts decided that, well, they don't want officers to have to face these trials over stuff they're doing on behalf of the public, split second decisions that they're making. So, I mean, that was the reasoning for qualified immunity. In practice, it has not worked out like that for a number of reasons. Again, in the weeds, but all of this can be demonstrated. So, the end result is that government entities use it as a shield to shield themselves from financial liability.
Yeah.
And they do that by basically using the police officer, using their employee as a human shield
Mm-hmm.
for litigation purposes. So, nope, you have to name that police officer, you have to sue that police officer, and we're probably going to defend that officer and indemnify that officer. But if we don't want to, also, we cannot do that. And so it does not, that's why it does not protect individual police officers, because if the government wants to, at any time, they can throw that police officer under the bus, because it's required that that guy is sued as an individual, and they don't have to indemnify. They could just let you get $1 billion verdict against the officer and say, well, oh, well, we'd rather just not pay it than back the blue. And so it doesn't help individual police officers at all, but the public isn't told that. They're just sort of gaslit. And it's not just the public. You look at politicians, like popular conservative politicians that take the position, that qualified immunity is out there doing some great thing, when it's not. And the fact that even they don't understand what's really going on here, and that this is a scam to just allow the government to escape any accountability at all. It just blows my mind that it's so difficult to get that through to people. But there's this big sort of psyop going on at all times where it's like they're pitting the all cops are bad crowd against the back the blue crowd. And it's just a manufactured sort of fake thing, while meanwhile they're getting what they want, just escaping liability in these lawsuits.
Hey, it's James Altucher. I've been an entrepreneur, investor, best-selling writer, stand-up comic, and whatever it is I'm interested in, I get obsessed. Yes, it's led to success, but it's also led to such heartbreaking failure. I have failed more times than I can count. I wish in my life I had people to talk to. That's why I started the James Altucher Show and bring on some of the most brilliant minds in every area of life. People like Richard Branson, Sarah Blakely, Mark Cuban, Danica Patrick, Gary Kasparov, and I wanted to find out exactly how they've navigated the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, just raw stories and real advice. I've talked to 1,500 of the most amazing people on the planet. So if you want to learn from the best and skip the same old canned interviews, we're all about helping you find your next big idea, level up your thinking, and ultimately to choose yourself. So let's do this together. Subscribe now to the James Altucher Show.
Let's get back to the show. Yeah, so a couple of points. If you told me like 15 years ago, when I was like almost a lone voice in the wilderness talking to conservatives, that there'd be skepticism, anything remotely close to skepticism on the right of police, it would have been like, yeah, next thing you know, you're going to have conservatives burning American flags. Okay, buddy, it's not a thing. And I think two major points, because they are of the belief, many, that the alternative is either backing the blue or Portland. Like, these are your choices. And given those two choices, I can totally understand why someone prefer backing the blue to having, your buildings burnt down and all drug use in the streets and rapes and all that. I can understand that. But then I think what really opened their eyes was COVID and how the police behaved. And you saw people being pulled out of churches. You saw people not being allowed to say goodbye to their grandma in the nursing home. You saw people being allowed not to visit their loved ones in the hospitals. And you see, especially now in Canada and especially the UK, what the police are doing, knocking on someone's house in the middle of the night, warning them. They're not even there for an arrest. They're saying, hey, there's some Facebook posts we didn't like. You might want to kind of think twice the second time. And this is completely counter. And this is in China, communist China. This is completely counter. They're speaking English to everything they'd been raised. And now they're like, oh, crap. And when I tell conservatives, if a law was passed tomorrow for mass gun confiscation, do you have any doubt that all the police would do it? And they'd be like, well, maybe not in my hometown. I'm like, yeah, but wouldn't they just send the state police? And they say yes. So there's now, shockingly, a huge understanding, especially after Trump was arrested and all that other stuff, that holy crap, these guys are agents of the government, and conservatives, by and large, theoretically, do have a skepticism of the state.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the growth of my YouTube channel, my very first video was in January of 2020.
Wow. Yeah.
So it began to grow as all of this was happening. And I was in the thick of it. Like it blackpilled me as well. Even having sued the government for years and years prior to that, even I was shocked at everything that happened. I never would have guessed that it happened, and everyone's going along with it. Yeah. And I'm just one guy. And so it seemed like at the beginning of all that, there were like lawyers in every state who were trying to stop it. And nobody in my state was. Nobody was. And so finally, I end up filing a lawsuit. I end up suing the governor of my state on behalf of several legislators trying to stop all the craziness, like a stay-at-home order. Okay, a stay-at-home order. Like, you're kidding me. And everyone's going along with it. I just couldn't believe it. I had a case. I still have the video on my YouTube channel, and it was pretty early on, so it's not something that probably would pop up under popular videos because it was earlier on in my YouTube career. But it was a video of this barber in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia being arrested out of his barber shop for violating the stay-at-home order issued by our governor. And this video footage shows two cops who claim, they probably have "We the People" tattoos and on their arms and stickers on their trucks, but they're standing there putting handcuffs on this elderly man who was a Vietnam combat veteran. He was on swift boats in Vietnam. And here he is several decades later having handcuffs applied to him in his barber shop because he was out of money and he didn't have any choice but to secretly start cutting people's hair in his barber shop. The government sent their employees to stop him. He said, "No, I'm not. I'm going to continue to cut hair." So he was defiant, and they put him in handcuffs and they arrested him. That happened. I filed a lawsuit and lost. I appealed it to the Fourth Circuit because they were given qualified immunity. They said, "Well, no, it wasn't clearly established that the governor couldn't do that. Nobody this is an epidemic. It's dangerous. The public health is at risk. We can't allow police officers to be sued for following orders when, it's very unclear and at that moment, I knew that, yeah, if that cop won't do it, there's another one in line who will. It doesn't matter if they have "We the People" tattooed on their forearm. It doesn't matter if they served in Iraq previously. It doesn't matter. It's not about the individual. If that guy doesn't do it, there are others who are going to do it. It's going to happen. And there's proof that it happened. As they're doing it, they're talking to the guy. They're like, "Well, I hate that we're doing this." But they sure as hell did it.
Right,
And
exactly.
they got away with it. No accountability, and the lawsuit was unsuccessful. Fourth Circuit upheld the finding of qualified immunity from the federal trial judge. So there was no accountability in that case. That is something that happened, and it will happen again. And so that was very much what led to me having this YouTube channel, was seeing all of this and then participating and personally trying to file lawsuits and sue our governor and try to get the courts to stop it. And for instance, complaining about the forced masking of children. That's something that drove me crazy because I knew that it was all BS. I knew that those particles were going right through masks, that it was all theatrics. And so I file lawsuits and I walk into court and these judges are wearing masks.
Yeah.
And then I have to take these little things off the microphone before I can use them. And of course I'm not going to win when the judges are wearing these masks. And they were willing to do this to children. And what really, really upset me, and by the way, that was the only strike I've ever gotten on my YouTube channel, which is still there, for giving medical misinformation that masks weren't good for children.
Hey, John,
Which
can I quote my friend Lou Perez?
Sure.
If you don't have COVID, you can't spread COVID. So if these kids aren't sick, they can't make you sick. It's not something that spontaneously forms within the body because you're a bad person or you're not wearing a totemic object in front of your face.
Yeah, that whole thing changed me as well, and so I got more into, I guess, content creation. When that happened, and why can't, I guess, to counteract all the propaganda that was happening. Of course, under what was happening at the time, they shut me up. I couldn't talk about. I had to go on to just the police or do something else because I wasn't even allowed to talk about that, even using verified scientific information and citing my facts. We had to pretend that because there is this public danger out there, that we just had to do whatever the government told us to do. And yeah, it changed me, and it kind of changed the direction of what I wanted to do. But the aspect of talking directly to the public and trying to communicate what I knew to the public and make them aware of what's going on, it's that sort of meshed with this appetite that I immediately had observed for police body cam footage and these interactions, and especially where almost all of it out there, it's not like there was someone like me analyzing it or presenting it. It was just people who were interested in it. So I thought, well, why not a civil rights lawyer do it? And so that's where I guess I came up with the very difficult name to think of, the civil rights lawyer, for my YouTube channel.
Let's talk about it from a lawyer's perspective. Cop pulls me over, shows up at my door. Hey, there's some crime that's been committed. Why don't you come in and answer some questions? And I think, hey, I'm innocent. These guys are my friends. I'll just sit there and I'll tell them whatever they need to know. Am I doing the right thing in your opinion?
Probably not. I think it's always a safe assumption to think that the government is out to screw you in some way. And so there are exceptions to every rule. And the main thing about this sort of stuff is that it's fact dependent. So, I mean, it's dependent on the facts. So there are situations where it might be worth cooperating, participating. But if I had to give an answer or make a decision that would apply in all of those cases, it would always be the safer route of keeping my mouth shut, and not talking, to the police. It depends on the situations. I mean, I think there's general good advice that's out there that can apply in situations, but it's always best to be safe. I think don't talk to the police is, a safe rule to have. Assuming that the government is out to get you is always a safe rule to have. I mean, there can be exceptions, but there's plenty of these videos that show otherwise.
So when would it be a good idea to cooperate, even hypothetically?
The the scenario of a self-defense shooting, is always a tricky one.
Okay.
And I can see where I think it's always good to be cooperative, but to do that in a smart way. It's like, let me give you an easier scenario. When you get pulled over, like in a traffic situation, a speeding ticket, people joke around with me, like when I get pulled over, like, what am I going to say? Am I going to get the body cam, like make a video out of it? No. Like when I get pulled over, it's like, I'm not saying anything about me being a lawyer. I'm not causing any problems. I'm not trying to invite them into my life any more than the limited amount of time necessary to get out of that situation.
Mhm.
So I've got my hands on the steering wheel. I'm very, very polite and cooperative.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
I'm feeding their ego. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm doing everything I can to not escalate or,
That's right.
cause any problems
Yep.
at all. I mean, and not because I have to do that, but because I recognize that that's in my self-interest to do.
Mhm.
I don't want to necessarily exercise any constitutional rights under those circumstances.
That's
Like
right.
I just want to move on with my life and not cause myself any problems. So I'm not out there doing anything like that. Like I am complying if it's me, unless
Sure.
there's some good reason not to. So I could think of those. Like, okay, maybe I have a gun on me. Maybe I have a concealed weapon. Depending on where I am, the laws could be different. You know, they may or may not know I have a concealed weapon permit. Um, they Police officers sometimes do this when they walk up to your car. You know, do you have any machine guns, grenade launchers, anything like that? You got any weapons on you? That's one of my pet peeves. When cops do that, this is what I hear. Like, I spit on your constitutional rights.
That's right.
Like, I'm a piece of garbage. If that person has no respect for my constitutional rights, which he doesn't, for my Second Amendment rights, I don't know what that person is going to do.
That's right.
So if I have a weapon on me, concealed, and it's not a problem, what is my response to that? You know, do I tell them that I have it? Do I not tell them that I have it? In some states, that could be a crime. In some states, it cannot be a crime. But there could be consequences either way. We saw the case in Jacksonville, I believe it was, where they disarmed this guy who was lawfully carrying concealed, had a permit, but he told them that he had it. And so they disarm him. And because the government, because they were incompetent, they shot him. You know, they had a negligent discharge and shot him in the leg. And none of that needed to happen. So once they know that I have a gun, there's all sorts of bad things
Yep.
that could happen. So do I lie or do I tell the truth? You know, and I've always thought that was an interesting question. In my opinion, morally and ethically, I believe a right thing to do that I could choose to do is to lie, because screw them. They should not be asking me that question. It's none of
Right.
their damn business. It wasn't relevant whether or not I have any weapons. Hell yeah, I have weapons, but it's none of their business. So, you could have the traffic stop that, is easy and they're polite and they send you on your way, or you can have someone like that who is going to test you in that way. So being compliant in the first scenario, I believe, is the right thing to do. Being compliant in the second scenario, for me, or for a lot of people, not being compliant, or somewhere in between, being partially compliant, is the right thing to do. So it depends on the facts, and it depends on who you're dealing with. And I think you need to be able to think on your feet and adapt to whatever situation that you're in. And so I worry less about myself or other people like me, and I worry more about teenagers.
Oh yeah.
Teenagers or people who are autistic, or
My
people who
audience.
have, some sort of mental issues,
Also my
because
audience.
police officers encounter all of those, lots of different types of people. And, just the simplest non-issue can go in two wildly different directions.
But here's another one where I watch these body cams and I'm just like, shit, I want to yell at the people, because what they don't realize is a lot of times the cops will ask a question in the format as if it's an order, and they're just fishing, right? So if you don't know which it is, you're going to screw yourself up. So they'll say something like, hey, mind if I check your vehicle? You don't have to say, and when people say, sure, go ahead, it's like, what is the upside for you here? They are telling you they're looking for something to fuck your shit up. You might have forgotten you have a beer can in the back that's open container. There's a million things that could go wrong. Why would you ever volunteer a stranger to go through your stuff? Like, just put your password public on the internet. Why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a difficult thing. And in law school, the main way that you learn is through the Socratic method.
Yep.
And, and you go through you go case by case, and so you study different fact scenarios. And then, you don't work as much with bright line rules, bright line laws. And I think that works really well for these sorts of topics. And that's how the law is. I mean, if you want to learn what is the law of when a police officer can order you out of the car, and when you have to, comply, or rather when they cannot order you out of the car, or what can they not do at a traffic stop. What you're doing is looking at prior fact patterns
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what the courts have decided in those fact patterns, and you try to find the closest one to the one you're trying to apply it to. So a great way to learn is to go through specific incidents. And that's really what I do, is go through specific incidents and sort of teach people and teach myself as I go, well, what is the law in this scenario? And sometimes it could go either way.
Yeah.
Because you have factual disputes and you have legal disputes. So many of these are factual disputes. The cop says he was ordered to get out of the car and he did not get out of the car. But when I see that video, I see him ordering the guy out of the car, and the guy says, well, what did I do? And then boom, he pulls him out and arrests him or tases him or whatever. So did the guy refuse to get out of the car? I would say no, they have not established that. He asked him one time, and that's a common thing that I see, is they set up an obstruction arrest, saying, get out of the car. And then soon as somebody asks the very natural response, like, well, why? What did I do? And that's completely normal. That then is used as the refusal. And that's now the basis to pull the person out violently and arrest them, not for any underlying crime, but for allegedly refusing to obey this allegedly lawful order. And so it can get very, very confusing, because at the end of the day, if we don't agree on the facts, whether or not there was this refusal, what's supposed to happen is you have a jury. You have a jury watch the video and ultimately decide, what are the facts and what are not the facts. So it's a good way to learn, and it's not like you just learn it. I've done this my whole career, where I've filed lawsuits over police citizen interactions, and I constantly have to learn and relearn what the law is and what the law isn't, because it's constantly changing, and it can be different in different areas of the country. It can be different in different states, because you're also dealing with underlying state laws.
Yeah.
So, it's been one of the things I really enjoy about doing this, is that I'm able to stay on top of understanding what the law is myself. And I can't always just spit it out off the top of my head. I have to go and sometimes relearn things I already knew, or find out that there's little exceptions that I didn't remember or didn't even know about. So it's kind of fun and interesting to watch interesting fact patterns, interesting stories that happened, and then just sort of armchair quarterback it and say, well, what should have happened? What were the legal rights, in that scenario? And it's not like always I can say for sure, this is what should have happened, or this was a violation. I mean, two people could disagree about a lot of these things, and that should be allowed to play out in the courts. And rarely can it, because we have all these roadblocks in place to prevent that from actually playing out in courts.
So I'm gonna I would encourage, first of all, before people watch your channel, it's extremely informative, but I would encourage them to take a sedative, because they're gonna get very, very upset. Because I think anyone with the slightest sense of decency, when you see children. This isn't like, okay, someone's mouthing off to the cops drunk at the airport, so they take him to the ground. We can wrap our heads around that, or they escalate when someone is like really driving erratically. Okay, let me read you some. These are the most recent titles of some of your videos, and the titles speak for themselves. Army of cops appear on 71-year-old man's lawn to quote unquote talk. Cop attacks 76-year-old man. Paranoid cop mistakes gas pump for a pistol. Off-duty cop draws on neighborhood kids. And the thumbnail is the cop pointing his gun at children. And of course, these children were about to, commit mass murder. So that's obviously necessary.
That one got age restricted. Yeah.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah. It got pretty much nuked. Everything but nuked.
Yeah. Cop. Oh, so there's some good ones. A cop. Oh.
Yeah, I hear that.
Hold on.
I hear this a lot.
Because whenever there's like a basement, there's like, I had Lara Logan the show a couple weeks ago, and as bad as I thought things were, she goes, "Oh no, it's much worse." And as numb as I was to this BS, here's the title that just really kind of triggered me really badly. And there's footage. It's cops beat deaf guy for not listening. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, again, when we think of cops being violent, we think, like you said, someone gives them attitude, they're beating the crap out of them. We can kind of empathize with that as human beings. Okay, if someone's really angry, they're an attitude. It's very hard to empathize with 3 people beating the crap out of a deaf person and then not going home and like drowning themselves and like, what kind of monster have I become? So the website is, and I would encourage people who have friends, because the idea is, there's, like you said, the PSYOP, that these are outliers, right? You've got you have almost 800 videos, and you watch it and you see how normal these cops are treating these situations, and you realize, wait a minute, for them, this isn't some kind of freak 1 in a million situation. This is how they operate. So the website is youtube.com/@thecivilrightslawyer. John, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Well, what you just mentioned, that, it really, it makes you personally understand the extent of the problems that exist when you see things happening to these people with whom you empathize. That's common. Everybody feels the same way. What I want people to think, and I do videos on those stories because they're compelling, and they're compelling because the victim is somebody just like you, or much more fragile in some way. The paralyzed man, the deaf man, the kid, the elderly man. Those get a lot of traction, and we're much more likely to get accountability in those cases just through my YouTube videos. And we've gotten a lot of accountability. I mean, we regularly get bad cops fired just out of my YouTube videos, and more, and sometimes politicians. But what I ultimately want to do, which is very, very difficult, is to get people to understand. And this is something that is difficult across party lines, across socioeconomic lines. Like, everybody has this problem of understanding, why should I care when it's somebody I don't empathize with? Why should I care about what the cops do to some guy who committed a crime?
Yeah.
Or it's undisputed he robbed a gas station, or he ran from the police, or he failed to comply at some earlier moment. Why should I care about that? And ultimately, I want to convince people that you should care about that, because it's no different. It's no different at all. Like, if you don't care about the rights of the paralyzed guy, or the deaf guy, or the child, or the elderly man, then you will have there are no rights.
Right.
If you don't apply those same rights to the people that you think deserve it, or effed around and found out.
We know this because you and I are both old enough to remember the Patriot Act. This is just for terrorists. Oh, I'm not Al-Qaeda. Look what they just did. My God, 3,000 people, like a nation turmoil. Of course we have to do this for 5 minutes later. Oh, did I say terrorist? I mean literally anybody.
Yeah. If you're going to allow the government to make the decision of who deserves to find out and who doesn't deserve
Right.
to find out, then, you deserve to find out yourself or your child or your grandfather. You are allowing that to happen only through caring and protecting the rights of those other guys. Do you really protect your own rights? And that, for some reason, is very, very, I mean, I guess I understand, but for people who don't do this stuff every day or think about it every day, like, I think we have to help make people understand that it's not about the individuals necessarily. Like, the stories are better, yes, but it's about, like, we have to make sure that we defend and protect our rights because the government wants to take them. I mean, the government has taken a lot of our rights. Every time you get in a car and you drive down the road,
Yeah.
you are less free than you were last year. I mean, first they started saying that there's an automobile exception to the warrant requirement, so they can search your car without a warrant because of police officer safety and all this other stuff. And here we are in 2025, where not only are they searching your car, but they have like a digital log of everywhere your car has been and where you have been, like the past couple of years. Every address you've been at, they know where you are whenever they want to know where you are and where you've been. I mean, we have agreed in the name of safety to give up so much freedom, and it's continuing to happen. So I think if people understand, just develop a respect for their rights and get rid of the disrespect that they have for the rights, then we'll have more freedom.
Okay, in all the years I've done this show, you're the first person who didn't do the exit question, so I'm going to try it again.
Sorry.
We're running out
I'm
of
not
time.
good at being questioned.
What are you, a cop? We're running out of
I
time.
like to ask questions. I'm a trial lawyer. I don't like to
May
be
I
a witness.
remind-
I've
may
been a
I-
witness before. I'm a terrible witness.
May I
I'm a
remind
terrible
you, sir, that you're under oath? This is your depot. Okay, let's try this again.
I plead the fifth.
We're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Oh, man. I think my favorite part of this interview is, I think this is the first podcast I've ever done.
Oh,
So that's my favorite thing. I've never even agreed to a podcast before.
oh,
I'm too
wow.
busy usually.
Okay, well, that is a huge compliment. Thank you so much. I guess I am welcome.
This October, Fear is free on Pluto TV with horror movie collections from Paranormal Activity, The Ring,
You will die in 7 days.
Scream, and From Dusk Till Dawn.
This is my kind of place.
And don't miss the man-made nightmares in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or the world-ending chaos in 28 Days Later.
There's something in the blood.
All the scares, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.